The space station called Horizon's Rest floated in the darkness between stars. It was a massive thing, built from metal and glass, spinning slowly around a small gray moon. 17 different alien species used this station as a meeting place. They came here to talk, to trade, and to solve their problems without war. Taisu had been living on this station for 8 months now. He was human, and humans were still very new to the galaxy. Earth had only made contact with alien life 3 years ago, and most species still looked at humans the way a person might look at a child trying to sit at the adult table. They thought humans were weak. They thought humans were stupid. They thought humans were dangerous in the way a wild animal is dangerous, not because of strength, but because of unpredictability. So when Earth asked to join the Galactic Concord, the great alliance of spacefaring species, they were given probationary status. This meant humans could work on stations and ships, but only in small numbers, and only in unimportant jobs. Taisu's job was very unimportant. He was a junior security consultant, which sounded impressive, but meant nothing. He spent his days checking cargo lists, walking through empty hallways, and watching screens that showed nothing happening. The other security officers, most of them tall, reptilian Korath warriors, ignored him completely. To them, he was furniture, something that existed but did not matter. He did not complain. He wrote letters to his mother June back on Earth, telling her that everything was fine. He sent videos to his younger sister Yuna, showing her the stars from the observation deck. He kept his head down and did his work, but sometimes, late at night when the station was quiet, Taisu would stand at the window and look out at the endless black. He would think about all the species out there who had conquered space travel thousands of years before humans learned to make fire. He would think about how small Earth was, how small he was, in the face of all that history, and he would wonder if humans would ever be seen as equals. The answer came on an ordinary Tuesday, though Taisu did not know it yet. The announcement spread through the station like fire. Empress Yrel of the Selvathi Dominion was coming to Horizon's Rest. This was enormous news. The Selvathi were one of the oldest species in the galaxy, and their empress was the most important person in 12 star systems. She was coming for emergency negotiations, though nobody told Taisu what the emergency was. He learned other things by listening to conversations he was not supposed to hear. The Empress was the last of her bloodline. If she died without an heir, the Selvathi Dominion would collapse into civil war. Billions of lives hung on her survival. The station went into high alert. Every corridor was checked. Every system was tested. And a small army of Korath warriors arrived to serve as the Empress's personal guard. These were not ordinary Korath. These were the elite, the best soldiers money could buy. Their scales were polished like black mirrors, and their eyes held the cold confidence of creatures who had never lost a fight. Taisu watched them march past and felt very small indeed. The day the Empress arrived, Taisu was assigned to crowd control on the lower levels. He would not even see her, he was told. He was to keep the maintenance workers calm and make sure no one wandered where they should not go. But fate had other plans. A water pipe burst on Deck 7, and Taisu was sent to help with the cleanup. He was carrying equipment through a restricted corridor when the Empress's procession passed through. He pressed himself against the wall and lowered his eyes, as protocol demanded. But he could not help looking up for just a moment. She was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. The Selvathi were bioluminescent, which meant their bodies produced their own light. But Empress Yrel did not just glow, she shimmered. Her tall, slender form moved like moonlight on water. Her skin shifted through colors that had no names in human language. Her eyes were deep and dark, filled with stars. Around her, the Korath guards moved in perfect formation. Their weapons were drawn, their attention on every shadow. They were a wall of muscle and scale between her and the universe. None of them looked at Taisu. To them, he was invisible. Just a human, just a piece of the background, as unimportant as the pipes he had been sent to fix. The Empress passed within 3 meters of him. For one heartbeat, her eyes moved across the corridor, and Tae-Soo felt certain she saw him. But then she was gone, gliding away like a dream at dawn. Tae-Soo stood there for a long time after, holding his equipment, his heart beating fast. He did not know why the moment felt so important. He did not know that in 3 days, those elite guards would abandon her. He did not know that he, a junior security consultant. 3 days passed like water through fingers. The negotiations continued behind closed doors, and the station held its breath. Tae-Soo returned to his normal duties, checking cargo and walking empty corridors, but something had changed inside him. He found himself thinking about the Empress, about the way she had moved, about the weight of responsibility she carried on her slender shoulders. He told himself it was foolish. She was royalty. He was nobody. Their worlds would never touch again. He was wrong. The attack came at 3 in the morning, station time, when most of the corridors were empty and the lights had dimmed for the night cycle. Tae-Soo was in the security office, drinking bad coffee and reading a report about missing cleaning supplies when the alarms began to scream. Red light flooded the room. The screens on the wall flickered and changed, showing images from cameras throughout the station. Ships. There were ships outside, dozens of them, unmarked and armed, dropping out of hyperspace like wolves appearing from fog. Tae-Soo grabbed his weapon and ran. The station shook as the first weapons hit the outer hull. Emergency announcements blared in 6 different languages, telling civilians to move to safe zones. Tae-Soo pushed through crowds of panicked workers, his mind racing. This was not a random attack. This was an assassination attempt. Someone wanted the Empress dead. He reached a junction and stopped, trying to decide which way to go. Protocol said he should help with civilian evacuation on the lower decks. That was his assignment. That was where he belonged. But something pulled at him, a feeling he could not name. He thought of the Empress, surrounded by her wall of Korath guards. She would be safe. She had the best protection in the galaxy. He turned toward the lower decks. Then the second wave hit. The station screamed as breach pods slammed into the hull. These were boarding craft, Tae-Soo realized with horror. The enemy was not just shooting at them. The enemy was coming inside. Explosions echoed through the corridors. Smoke began to fill the air. And through his earpiece, Tae-Soo heard something that made his blood freeze. The royal corridor had been breached. Enemy soldiers were heading toward the Empress. He changed direction without thinking. His legs carried him upstairs and through passages toward the diplomatic wing where he had seen her 3 days ago. He did not know what he would do when he got there. He did not know if he could do anything at all. But he ran anyway. The smoke grew thicker as he climbed. Bodies lay in the corridors now, station workers who had been in the wrong place. Tae-Soo stepped over them, his heart pounding, his weapon tight in his hands. He heard the fighting before he saw it, weapon fire, screaming, the heavy sound of Korath battle cries. Good, he thought, the guards are holding. Then he turned the corner and saw the truth. The Korath guards were not fighting. They were leaving. One by one, in perfect formation, they holstered their weapons and walked away from their posts. Their faces showed nothing. No shame, no fear. Just the empty calm of soldiers following orders, orders that had been bought. Tae-Soo pressed himself against the wall, unable to believe what he was seeing. The greatest warriors in the galaxy, sworn to protect the Empress with their lives, were abandoning her. Someone had paid them. Someone had offered them more than honor was worth. The last guard passed within arm's reach of Tae-Soo. Their eyes met for a single moment. The Korath's expression did not change. He simply walked on, disappearing into the smoke like a ghost. And there, at the end of the corridor, stood Empress Yrel. She was alone. Her light flickered wildly, shifting through colors of fear and confusion. Her hands were raised, as if trying to ward off an enemy that was not there yet. But it would be there soon. Tae-Soo could hear footsteps approaching from both directions, heavy boots and harsh voices. The separatists were coming. The fanatics who wanted her dead, who wanted to drown the Dominion in civil war. They were coming, and there was no one left to stop them. No one except a single human with 12 rounds in his weapon and no backup. Tae-Soo looked at the Empress. He looked at the corridor behind him, still clear, still offering escape. He thought about his sister Yuna, who had cried at the spaceport when he left. He thought about his mother June, who had held his face in her hands and told him to be brave but also to be smart. Running was smart. Running was survival. Running was what any reasonable creature would do. Tae-Soo stepped out of the shadows and walked toward the Empress. Her eyes found him, wide and terrified. She did not recognize him. Why would she? He was just a human, just part of the background, as unimportant as the pipes he had been sent to fix. But he was here, and he was not leaving. The Empress stared at Tae-Soo like he was a ghost. Her light pulsed with confusion, flickering between pale blue and deep violet. In her long life, she had seen many strange things, but a human standing between her and death was something she had never imagined. "Your Majesty," Tae-Soo said, keeping his voice calm even though his heart was trying to break through his ribs. "Please stay behind me." "You are human," she said. It was not a question. "Yes, ma'am." "My guards have left." Her voice cracked on the words. The betrayal was still fresh, still bleeding. "The Korath have abandoned me." I noticed. "You will die if you stay." Tae-Soo checked his weapon. 12 rounds. He had 12 rounds and a small knife on his belt. Against how many enemies? 20, 30, more? "Probably," he said, "but not before some of them do." The first attackers appeared at the end of the corridor. They wore dark armor without markings, their faces hidden behind helmets. Professional killers, mercenaries hired to end a royal bloodline and start a war. They saw the humans standing in their way and laughed. Tae-Soo did not wait for them to stop laughing. He fired twice, dropping the first two before they could raise their weapons. Then he grabbed the Empress's arm and pulled her through a side door, into a maintenance passage he had memorized during his months of walking empty corridors. "Where are we going?" she asked, stumbling to keep up with him. "Somewhere they do not expect." The station's layout lived in his head like a map. He knew every shortcut, every hidden passage, every place where the walls were thin enough to hear footsteps on the other side. This knowledge, gained through boredom and loneliness, was now the only thing keeping them alive. They moved through the darkness, the Empress's glow lighting their way. Behind them, angry shouts echoed as the attackers found their dead companions. "They will hunt us," Yarel said. "Yes. They will not stop until I am dead. Then we need to make sure they die first." She made a sound that might have been a laugh, though it held no joy. "You speak as if this is simple." "It is simple." Tae-Soo stopped at a junction, listening. Footsteps to the left. He turned right. "Simple does not mean easy." They emerged into a cargo bay filled with crates and shadows. Tae-Soo guided the Empress to a corner where the containers formed a natural barrier. From here, he could see both entrances. From here, he could make a stand. "Stay low," he told her. "Do not make a sound." "What are you going to do?" Tae-Soo did not answer. He was already moving, climbing on top of the crates, finding a position where he could see without being seen. His hands were steady. His breathing was slow. Somewhere deep inside him, a switch had been flipped. He was no longer Tae-Soo, the junior security consultant who checked cargo lists. He was something older, something that lived in the blood of every human who had ever fought to protect their own. The first group of attackers entered through the east door. 5 of them, moving in formation, checking corners. Good training, professional. But they were looking for a frightened queen, not a human predator. Tae-Su let them pass beneath him. Then he dropped. His knife found the first throat before anyone could scream. He took the dying soldier's weapon and used it on the second. The third spun to face him and received a boot to the knee, then a blade to the eye. The fourth managed to fire, but Tae-Su was already moving, already inside his guard, already ending his life. The fifth ran. Tae-Su shot him in the back. It was over in 8 seconds. The Empress watched from her hiding place, her light frozen in a color Tae-Su had never seen. Horror, perhaps, or awe, or both. "How?" she whispered. "How did you do that?" Tae-Su collected weapons from the bodies, 2 rifles, 3 pistols. Enough ammunition to last a while longer. His shoulder hurt where a blade had grazed him, but he ignored it. "Humans are persistence predators," he said, checking each weapon. "On our world, we used to hunt by chasing animals until they collapsed from exhaustion. We are not the fastest, we are not the strongest, but we do not stop. You killed 5 trained soldiers in seconds. They were not expecting resistance." He moved back to her position, pressing a pistol into her hands. "Do you know how to use this?" She looked at the weapon like it was a poisonous snake. "I am a queen. I do not fight. Today, you might have to." More footsteps echoed in the corridor outside. Many footsteps. The main force had found them. Tae-Su positioned himself in front of the Empress once more. His body was beginning to ache. His hands were covered in blood that was not his own. And somewhere in the back of his mind, a small voice whispered that this was suicide, that he should have run, that no one would have blamed him. But a louder voice answered. She needed help. He was here. That was all that mattered. "Your Majesty," he said quietly, "I am going to get you out of this, but I need you to trust me." The battle for the cargo bay lasted 40 minutes. When it was over, 11 more bodies lay on the floor, and Tae-Su had a new wound across his chest, where a blade had cut through his uniform. The blood ran warm down his stomach, but he did not have time to stop and bandage it. "We need to move," he said. They fled deeper into the station, through service tunnels and forgotten passages. The attackers were everywhere now, spreading through the corridors like poison in blood. Tae-Su could hear them communicating through their helmets, coordinating their search. They were angry. They had expected this to be easy. They had not expected a human. He found a defensible position in an old engineering section, a narrow corridor with only 2 approaches. Here, their numbers meant nothing. Here, he could make them pay for every step. "Stay behind that console," he told the Empress. "Do not move until I tell you." She obeyed without question now. The proud queen who had glided through the station like moonlight was gone, replaced by a survivor who understood that her life depended on the strange human with blood on his hands. The attackers came in waves. The first wave learned that the corridor was a death trap. Tae-Su had found the environmental controls and vented the atmosphere in the front section, watching through a window as 3 soldiers gasped and died in the vacuum. Then he restored the air and waited for more. The second wave brought shields. Tae-Su waited until they were close, then triggered an overload in the power conduit above their heads. Electricity arced down, cooking 2 of them inside their armor. The others fled. The third wave tried to flank him. They did not know about the maintenance hatch behind them. Tae-Su came through it like a demon from old Earth stories, killing 3 before they even turned around. Hours passed. The bodies piled up. Tae-Su lost count after 30. His ammunition ran out, so he used their weapons. His weapons ran out, so he used his knife. His knife broke, so he used his hands. The Empress watched him fight with eyes that grew wider with each passing hour. She had read about humans in reports. Primitive, the reports said. Weak. Dangerous only in groups, like pack animals. The reports had been wrong. She saw him take a plasma bolt to the shoulder and keep fighting. She saw him snap a soldier's neck with his bare hands while another stabbed him in the back. She saw him fall and rise and fall again and rise again, each time more terrible than the last. During a brief pause in the fighting, she asked him the question that burned in her mind. "Why are you doing this?" Tae-Soo leaned against the wall, breathing hard. Blood dripped from a cut above his eye, running down his face like red tears. His right arm hung at an angle that suggested something was broken inside. "Doing what?" "Dying for me." Her voice trembled. "Your species owes us nothing. We have treated you as lesser beings. We have given you the worst jobs and the smallest respect. We have laughed at your primitive world and your short lives." Her light flickered with something like shame. "Why would you sacrifice yourself for someone who treated you as nothing?" Tae-Soo was quiet for a long moment. Then he laughed, a small sound that hurt his broken ribs. "Where I come from," he said, "we have a saying. You do not leave anyone behind. Not friends, not strangers, not even people who look down on you." He managed a weak smile. "Besides, my mother would be very disappointed if I let a lady get hurt." The Empress stared at him. Her light shifted to a color she had only shown once before in her life, on the day her mother died. It was the color of something she had thought lost forever. Hope. "You are not what we were told," she said softly. "Humans usually are not." A noise echoed down the corridor. More attackers were coming. Tae-Soo pushed himself off the wall, swaying on his feet. His body was failing. He could feel it in every movement, every breath, but his eyes were still clear, and his hands still knew how to kill. "How many are left?" the Empress asked. Tae-Soo listened to the footsteps, counted the shadows, calculated the odds. "Too many." "Then we will die here." "Maybe." He picked up a weapon from a fallen enemy. "But not yet. And not without making them remember this day." The Empress rose from her hiding place. Her light blazed suddenly, brighter than Tae-Soo had ever seen it. She walked to his side and stood there, small and fragile and utterly unafraid. "If we die," she said, "we die together. I will not hide behind you like a coward while you give your life for mine." Tae-Soo looked at her, this queen of 12 star systems, standing beside a bleeding human in a broken corridor. "Your Majesty," he said, "you are going to make this much harder." "Good," she replied. "Humans are not the only ones who can be stubborn." The rescue fleet arrived at dawn, station time. 12 warships from the Galactic Concorde dropped out of hyperspace with weapons hot, responding to distress signals that had been broadcasting for hours. They found the enemy fleet already fleeing, their mission failed, their forces destroyed. Inside the station, search teams moved through the wreckage. They found survivors huddled in safe rooms. They found bodies in the corridors. They found evidence of a battle that made no sense. Then they found the engineering section. The first soldier to enter stopped dead in his tracks. Behind him, others gathered, staring in silence at what lay before them. 47 enemy combatants lay dead in the corridor. Some had been shot. Some had been stabbed. Some had been killed in ways that suggested bare hands and desperate fury. The walls were scorched black with weapon fire. The floor was slick with blood. And in the center of it all, slumped against a support beam, was a single human. Tae-Soo was barely alive. His body was broken in more places than the medics could count. 3 cracked ribs, a punctured lung, burns across his back and arms. A blade wound in his shoulder that had missed his heart by centimeters. His right arm was shattered. His left eye was swollen shut. But he was still breathing, and behind him, untouched, unharmed, her light blazing like a star, stood Empress Yrel. The rescue team leader was a Korath named Vorith. He looked at the carnage, looked at the human, and could not find words. "The human did this?" he finally asked. "The human saved my life." The Empress's voice was sharp as broken glass. "While your kind fled, while the greatest warriors in the galaxy sold their honor for money, this human, this creature you call primitive and weak, stood in their path and did not move." Vorith lowered his eyes. He had no answer. The medics rushed forward, working frantically to stabilize Tae-Soo. They loaded him onto a stretcher, connected tubes and monitors, spoke in urgent voices about blood loss and organ damage. "Will he live?" the Empress demanded. "We do not know," a medic admitted. "His injuries are severe. Any other species would already be dead." "He is human," Yrel said. "They do not die easily." She followed the stretcher as they carried him to the medical ship. She did not leave his side as they flew to the Selvathi homeworld. She sat beside his bed in the Royal Medical Center, watching machines breathe for him, waiting for him to wake. 3 weeks passed. Stories spread across the galaxy in those weeks. The footage from the station's cameras was recovered and shared. Every species with access to the galactic network watched the same images. A single human, outgunned and outmatched, fighting for 6 hours to protect a queen who was not his own. They saw him kill. They saw him bleed. They saw him fall and rise and fall again. They saw him stand in front of 40 armed soldiers with nothing but a broken knife and refuse to move. The galaxy had never seen anything like it. On Earth, Tae-Soo's mother June watched the footage with tears running down her face. His sister Yuna watched it 17 times, unable to believe that her quiet brother had become a legend. In the halls of the Galactic Concord, representatives who had dismissed humans as primitive animals sat in uncomfortable silence. The Korath Mercenary Guild, shamed by the betrayal of their elite guards, publicly dissolved and reformed under new leadership. The Selvathi separatist faction collapsed without support. And in a quiet room on the Selvathi homeworld, a human opened his eyes. Tae-Soo woke slowly, like rising from deep water. Everything hurt. His body felt like it belonged to someone else, someone who had been through a war. Then he saw the Empress sitting beside his bed, and the memories came flooding back. "You waited," he said. His voice was rough, barely a whisper. "I have been here since they brought you in." Yrel's light was soft, gentle. "I could not leave. Not after what you did." Tae-Soo tried to laugh, but it hurt too much. "How long?" 3 weeks. She paused. "My people wish to honor you. You will be named Guardian of the Dominion. It is the highest title a non-Selvathi can hold. No one has ever received it before." He blinked, processing this. "That seems like a lot." "You earned it." She leaned forward, and her light touched his face like warm sunlight. "I asked you why you stayed. You never truly answered. You said humans do not leave anyone behind, but there must be more. There must be something deeper." Tae-Soo was quiet for a long moment. He thought about the question. He thought about the night he had spent fighting, about the moment when he could have run and chose to stay instead. "Because someone had to," he said finally. "And I was there. That is all. When someone needs help, you help them. When someone is in danger, you protect them. It does not matter if they are human or alien, friend or stranger. It does not matter if you are afraid, or if the odds are impossible, or if you might die." He met her eyes. "You do it anyway, because that is what makes us human." The Empress was silent. Then slowly she leaned forward and pressed her forehead against his. It was a Selvathi gesture he did not know, but he felt the meaning of it. Trust. Gratitude. Something close to love. "Then perhaps," she said softly, "the galaxy has been wrong about humans for a very long time." Tae-Soo returned to Earth eventually, decorated and celebrated, the first human hero the galaxy had ever known. His sister Yuna made him promise never to do anything that stupid again. His mother, June, held his face in her hands and cried. He promised them he would be careful. He lied. Because somewhere out there, someone else might need help. Someone else might be alone and afraid, with no one to stand between them and the darkness. And when that happened, Tesu would be there. That was what humans did. That was what made them human. Despite everything, Tesu smiled. The final wave came. The Empress looked at him for a long moment. Then, slowly, her light began to steady. "I trust you," she said. The doors burst open, and the real fight began. The footsteps grew louder. Shadows moved at both ends of the corridor. Time was running out. Tesu raised his weapon and stood in front of the last queen of the Selvathi Dominion. The betrayal was complete. The guards had fled, and now, against all logic and reason, the humans stayed. With a low-level weapon and no backup, would be the only thing standing between her and death. He did not know that he was about to change the galaxy's opinion of humanity forever. All he knew in that moment was that he had seen something worth protecting. And somewhere deep in his chest, in the place where humans keep their stubbornness and their courage and their refusal to give up, something began to wake.